Walking in the rabbit lake back and forth wilderness valley, wearing sword man suddenly in front of a tombstone stop footsteps, go to a unblinking small earth-wrapped tombstone beside, squat down body, stretch out hand bowl go wrap around the stone tablet vines grass, reveal it originally real face. Writing is vague, can only vaguely distinguish half of the text, man sigh, divine path broken, ritual music flourish. 100 families fight must begin. The man stood up after, look to, that has not entered Jinwu Mountain, officially pay respect to master and ancestor's disciple. Front from always when direction. Youth mouth corner, ear and nose are all bleeding. Make that swarthy face, looks exceptionally ferocious terror. Youth raised arm, randomly wipe a while, continue to stare at the other side. The man said, Maku Xuan, according to your previous given reason, you are because of knowing that hometown young girl, in the alley with one hand flying sword technique, join hands with great sway prince and eunuch, kill your life first master. So you are troubled, need to leave the small town ahead to take revenge. I feel this is said to be clear, then no longer hinder you from your life and death conceit. After all, cultivation people can meet this kind of great path enemy, is already a danger, also a fortuitous encounter. But as the man increased tone, absolutely not taking the present disciple's outstanding talent and biased, deep voice said, but you are following the alley nipping peers, why? I have said to you before, my Jinwu Mountain soldier family cultivator, especially sword path people, absolutely cannot use to kill innocent people. The young man asked one thing and answered another. A soldier's monk, is it possible to not care about the karma and retribution, fate and luck? The man nodded and said, looking at the 1,000 years of history books, those who can use their own strength to turn back the tide, and turn back the tide are mostly our soldiers' saints. It's not that I, a soldier's monk, deliberately sing praises of the virtues of the ancient sages. The man stared at the young man, not planning to let the young man off the hook easily. If Ma Xuan likes to kill and bullies others, then why would he accept this kind of disciple for Jinwu Mountain? Soldier family cultivator in secular dynasty, rely on battlefield killing to increase realm. Originally is the most close to life and death path. Once cannot protect the original heart, extremely easy to fall into the devil's path. Think about it. A person holding military power to practice, massacre people in the city, destroy the country. Fierce easy? Soldier family and Confucianism is supporting up at the foot of the mountain dynasty world peace, two big pillars. Once a person is respected by people, soldier family cultivator himself establishes himself unjustly, like this person realm cultivation is higher, temple status is higher, for the entire secular dynasty attack deeply, naturally will be bigger. In history, the rut, clearly before the eyes. To the people's heart fierce difficult, lose the people's heart fierce easy. Although these words are Confucian sage words, but his soldier family cultivator not lack read all kinds of poetry books Confucian generals, to this deep acceptance. The young man probably felt the solemn atmosphere, but was not in a hurry to argue back. Reached out, his palm gently covered his ear, touching the injured place, immediately bared his teeth and glared, took a deep breath, paused, withdrew his hand, looked at the palm of his hand, a pool of blood, said, that guy is called Chun Ping and his father died when he was very young. That man was a famous Yao Gong in the small town when he was alive. His skills were very good. He was also honest, later. He suddenly died unexpectedly. His body was not found, although my grandmother has always been unwilling to admit it. But I remember very clearly. That was a flash of lightning and thunder on a rainy night. I was awakened by the sound of lightning. Then found that my grandmother was not by my side. Just pushed the door open, saw my father sneaking back, both surprised and scared. Very strange appearance. My mother used all her strength to slap my father behind her back, laughing so hard she couldn't close her mouth. Okay, the mood is ruined. The teenager instinctively frowned, trying hard to recall those miserable images of his childhood. Only my grandmother did not speak, as if she was not very happy, but instead got angry with my father. You think that child whose father is dead, you can have the opportunity to marry her? Also not spreading urine to reflect your own temperament. That Nepping Alley branch of the Chun family, several generations of people are all one single tree. You will not be afraid of harming one person. In the end, harming the other family's family of 3 people cannot survive. At that time, this Chun family will be cut off like this, not afraid of falling into the retribution of the other family's ancestors. Take 10,000 steps back and say, that girl's temperament, you really don't understand, willing to remarry you? My father at that time was joking. Probably felt that doing it is doing it. Very soon must get the reward in front of the family. Then do not pretend to be regretful and guilty. My grandmother finally together pointed at me mother's sore nose scolding. My mother also is not good temper. Mother-in-law, daughter-in-law, almost in the main street beat a fight. My father is this kind of new to replace old people. He that same age small town neighbors, all do not like him. At that time he naturally helped his wife not help old mother. Finally my grandmother sat on the ground, fiercely beat her chest. One side cried, one side complained to that piece of plaque, said my family. Invited such a comet woman to enter the family. You die with eyes wide open. The man followed the young man's thoughts, asked, you are thinking to bring the illusory good and evil retribution. Previous life people did bad karma. All together on yourself. Hope your grandmother and your parents can die old? Ma Ku Xian curled her lips. I really have no feelings for my parents. Only my grandmother is not at ease. She is not willing to go to Zhenwu Mountain with me, saying that she in this life must be buried next to her grandfather's grave if she goes to that unknown tens of thousands of miles outside Zhenwu Mountain. Recently, she wants to trouble me, this grandson, to move a jar back home for a trip. Secondly, she heard that after people die, the road to the mortal world in front of the grave will be extremely bumpy. She said that during the time of existence, she has suffered enough, but does not want to die later and still want to suffer. The man said, in terms of feelings, it can be forgiven, but it is unreasonable. Just this once, there's no next time. Ma Ku Xian curled her lips. Her expression was indifferent. She did not shake her head or refute, but also did not nod or not agree. The man smiled on the wound of the teenager's mouth, sprinkled salt, and said, how does it feel to be pressed on the ground by a peer? Ma Ku Xian angrily said, if it wasn't for that woman stealing my knife, I would have lost a Chin Pinyin. From start to finish, I only used 7 parts of my strength. If it wasn't for the feeling of wanting to play a little cat, catching a mouse. The man lightly sneered and said, playing cat and mouse? Forget it. Don't you think about using 7 parts of your strength to kill Chan Pinyin, and at the same time, you can also make that young lady lose her guard, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Thinking about it is actually very beautiful. The young man's face was red, his neck stiffened, and he resentfully said, who are you, master? The man laughed, ha. The 2 of them once again set off towards a small town. The young man asked, compared to that Zhengyang Mountain, is Zhenwu Mountain higher or lower? The man laughed and asked, are you asking whether it's the truth or a lie? The young man's eyes shifted. Where's the lie? The man replied, that is not very different. The young man sighed sadly, feeling that he really met bad people, receiving 2 masters. One inexplicably died suddenly in the small town of Kai Long Alley. One was not very capable and had many rules. The man laughed and said, Zhengyang Mountain outside, although is the Sword Path Foundation place, but in the eastern Bao Ping continent cultivator's perception, the status is far inferior to the mortal enemy Feng Lei Yuan. So Zhengyang Mountain is not considered a first-class sect force. Of course, this is just a false appearance on the surface. In fact, Zhengyang Mountain's internal foundation is deep. Just that year that grudge arose after, Feng Lei Yuan had a person sword path. Achievement, far surpassing the same generation, to astonish. Ingly brilliant, causing Zhengyang Mountain to have to endure several hundred years of humiliation and support. Ma Ku Xian angrily said, no matter how you exaggerate Zhengyang Mountain, it cannot change the fact that Zhenwu Mountain is not as good as Zhengyang Mountain. The man laughed and said, Ma Ku Xian, you thought wrong. Zhengyang Mountain and our Zhenwu Mountain's gap, roughly considered to be still a Zhengyang Mountain away. The young man was stunned, hearing the man's meaning, then immediately laughed and said, this is not much different. The man reminded, sect is sect. You are yourself. The short young man laughed and said, "You also think wrong. I mean, if Jin Wushan is so high, I will practice martial arts to great success in the future. Want to find someone to discuss, then sober up and reduce work, not to the point that all around me are a bunch of embroidered pillows and clothes racks and rice bags." The man laughed and let it go. This kind of eloquent words. Change it to the Naping Alley young man to say, "Isn't it more convincing?" The young man angrily said, "With you like this as master? Be careful. If you let someone beat you to death in the future, I won't help you take revenge." The man stretched out his hand to his back, patted the sword's sheath, and smiled and said, "Except for this sword, master is alone. His body dies and is gone. What use is your revenge?" The young man doubtfully said, "Isn't there still Jin Wushan, this sect?" The man sold a button. Jin Wushan is different from Dong Beipingzu other sects. You go up the mountain later will understand. The man sighed. That tiger talisman lightly jumped. The man pressed the tiger talisman for a while, very quickly said in a low voice, "You and I speed back to the small town. I am a soldier cultivator. Avoid danger and seek good fortune. Know the future," almost instinctively. The young man disdainfully said, "The small town over there is even a reversal of fortune. The people of other countries and the people of the small town kill each other until blood flows into rivers. What does it have to do with me? We can say, well, I can promise not to commit adultery, but also absolutely not do anything heroic, help in times of danger and rescue actions." The man's face was solemn, grabbed the young man's shoulder, ordered, "No need to talk, stop breathing." The two people's figures suddenly flashed and disappeared. Immediately after that had appeared in more than 10 zhang outside. Like that circulating, like the young Ma Ku Xian in the spring water hid out consecutively water flowed. Chun Ping, and except for the back, was Ma Ku Xian that rock rubbed out to the wound. In fact, the external injury does not count much. But this absolutely does not mean Chun Ping and is very comfortable. The most troublesome is still the left-hand palm. Go down to the water to touch the stonefish claw, delay the recovery speed. This time with Ma Ku Xian fight a battle, fist touch fist. Even more as the fence falls the ivy climbs. So tear down the old cotton cloth time. Even Chun Ping and can only open a bag on the waist, take out the porcelain bottle, drink the inside thick medicine, is exactly the medicine that Yang Jia Fo Zi that year opened, other useless as can relieve pain. Ning Yao took back this ancient shaped knife, cut off his own shirt inside a large piece of sleeve, tore it into pieces, helped Chin Ping and bandage his head, full of cold sweat, asked, "Yang Jia Fo Zi folk medicine, really useful?" Chun Ping and gently waved his left hand, suppressed a trace of smiling face. "Very useful. Just now was really painful. I had already suffered like this twice before." Ning Yao scolded. "The palm of the hand can see the white bone flesh. Cannot hurt? You really think that you cultivate into a diamond invincible Arhut golden body, or is still a spotless Taoist true monarch? Make you rely on strength. With that Ma Ku Xian to fight, he did not say to fight alone. He fought us two alone. No bad habits, ah? Even I, the dignified Ning Yao, do not mind losing face. But you actually love heroes and are addicted. Otherwise, wait until you fight alone in Jinyang Mountain Panshan Yuan. I'll continue to help you applaud and praise." Chin Ping and just calculated to break his own views and principles with her. The young girl suddenly glared. The young man immediately nodded and said, "Miss Ning is right." Ning Yao said with a squint, "If you are convinced, you do not mind. Think I do not know?" Chun Ping and laughed darkly. Eyes always secretly glanced at her in that hand to press the knife. At first glanced cute in the pocket, looked at the sharp tip cold. The teenager felt that this pressed the knife, with its owner, seemed completely opposite. Ning Yao made Chun Ping and raise his right hand, put the knife, gently put it back and tied it tightly on the arm of the knife sheath, warned, "Can't get an inch and want to take a foot, can't have any unruly ideas towards this knife." Chun Ping and helplessly said, "Miss Ning, you think too much." Ning Yao suddenly stretched out his hand to point to the earliest, that armless spirit god statue. "That black stone throne. Know what kind of stone is it made of?" Chun Ping nodded and said, "No, Miss Ning, you want to ask the person? We just need to follow the small stream, always in the mountain, to go very far. I judge at least want to go during the day. Can see a piece of black stone slope. All of this kind of stone, really hard. Use hammerhead, also mix not less than a little bit of stone chips. Not to mention using a wood chopping knife to chop. The stone slope on the other side also has a few things sinking down the field condition of the concave. Inside has a bit of slope. Also not even, old man every time pass by that place. Will take out the wood chopping knife to go to the devil. Really don't say, after the devil passes, the wood chopping knife really will compete for the amount. With the front is really not the same. Ning Yao rubbed his forehead, half crying, half laughing, said, "Used to chop wood and use the wood chopping knife." Chun Ping and eyes lit up. "Worth it?" Ning Yao angrily said, "It's worth it. That formed a whole piece of stone slope. You made a little bit? I tell you, ordinary immortals also can't do it, unless it is a great killing power great sword immortal. Moreover, willing to throw away a divine weapon. Then it can be enough to crack roughly 2-3 foot large stone blocks. Will be professionally named by sword cultivators as dragon slaying platform. Each piece is naturally priceless." Chun Ping and fell into deep thought. Ning Yao suddenly, also before the eyes lit up, the spirit coffin idol under the sole of the foot there. Doesn't it have a sword whetstone? So big, just right can cut into 2 pieces of dragon slaying platform. Chun Ping Anne's ass was on fire, and she quickly advised, "Miss Ning, we can't destroy it and move back home. That old master's spirit official has been humiliated enough. If we take his resting place away again." Ning Yao suddenly stood up, coldly snorted, "Snatch. Am I that kind of person?" Then Chun Ping and followed the young girl and walked towards that Taoist spirit official statue. Standing in front of the colored patterned clay statue, Ning Yao stepped forward, her hands pressed down on the scabbard and sword scabbard respectively. Excited and majestic, she raised her head and shouted, "My name is Ning Yao. Today you only need to take this 3 feet resting place below your feet and give it to me. Then in the future, when I Ning Yao achieve the sword immortal realm, I will definitely repay you 100,000 times." Chun Ping and opened her mouth wide, thinking to herself, "This is also true?" Sure enough, the clay statue idol didn't move at all. The young girl did not have the good of oranges, continued to say, "Don't want to give right. I hear Ning Yao, and you borrow the total, okay? There is borrowing and returning this kind of thing." Ning Yao did not forget to turn her head to Chun Ping and blink. "I hear is borrowing, not snatching, understand?" Chun Ping and shook her head vigorously, honestly replied, "Not clear." Ning Yao was about to properly answer Chun Ping and to explain that snatching and borrowing are completely different. Chun Ping and suddenly shouted, "Be careful." While speaking, Chun Ping and's body had moved, one hand through Ning Yao to his back. It turned out that the original spirit coffin idol, after experiencing over 100,000 years of exposure to the sun and rain, finally fell to the ground one day with a loud bang, falling forward onto the ground, completely shattered, not even revealing the skeletal posture of a leg or an arm. Even the originally lifelike beard was also crushed from the ground toward the ground go, as if this human world a trip, considered as truly finished. Moreover, this pile of storms, extremely mysterious place, in the place of spirit coffin idol height, young girl and idol stone throne between this point distance. The former want to pass quite a bit. In theory, Chun Ping and Ning Yao, even if not afraid of being crushed down, at least will be hit not lightly. But intentionally to the end, the idol clay statue turned into dust. The furthest also only reached their 2 people's feet. Extensive knowledge. Ning Yao swallowed saliva, somewhat guilty, lowered head to look at those flying dust, muttered to say, "You are also too stingy. Don't lend, then don't lend. Still want to compete with me, a broken jade stone broken?" Chun Ping and suddenly shook head, said, "This called Bodhisattva nod is agreeing to you." Ning Yao and the youth stood side by side, looking at those dust fragments, looking back at that distant place, bare black dragon-slaying platform, finally turned head to look at Chun Ping and tentatively asked, "Are you sure?" Chun Ping and smiled and said, "I'm sure." Ning Yao believed without a doubt. Even she herself did not know why. Finally, under Chun Ping and's guidance, Ning Yao together helped to bring those mud-stained fragments, move into the side that had already dug a hole, covered with soil. Chun Ping bowed his head and silently said, "Regardless of human and God, go to the grave for peace." Ning Yao also followed with a bowed head and softly said, "Go to the grave for peace." After doing this all, Ning Yao curiously asked, "Chun Ping, this is your small town's customs and customs? Is it the ancestors' rules that are passed down to pay attention to?" Chun Ping shook his head and said, "No, I feel like that myself." Ning Yao raised her eyebrows. Chun Ping smiled and asked, "Miss Ning, don't you feel comfortable after finishing this?" Ning Yao also shook her head, "No feeling." Chun Ping scratched his head, looked at that black stone platform, and asked, "Is it called the dragon-slaying platform?" Ning Yao hummed, "In martial arts people, it might be called a whetstone or a sword whetstone. Only sword cultivators on a mountain would call this the dragon-slaying platform." Ning Yao turned his head to look at the southwest direction. His eyes were startled, and he said in a low voice, "My hometown over there also calls the sword whetstone. Everyone will have a piece. The size is not the same. The same is only a fist like that big. Even some family collapse, low sword cultivator cultivation. Only a thumb-sized sword whetstone left. The same looks like a family life is more important. It's not that there is none. My family also has one, very big." Chun Ping asked softly, "How big is it?" The young girl murmured, "Compared to your family's Naping Alley building, is still big." The young man's face was full of shock. Then he said with great admiration, "Miss Ning, then your family is really rich. Moreover, such a big piece of sword whetstone. Also don't need to be afraid of being stolen. Really good. Unlike me, really hard to save the next bit of money. Hiding anywhere also can't sleep well." Originally somewhat sympathetic to the young girl who was far away from home, the sadness disappeared. She smiled and said, "This whetstone, one person, one half." The young man waved his hand. "What do I want it to do? My family has a firewood chopping knife, but where's the need to use such a precious whetstone? Each time I cut a knife, I have to feel heartache once. Why not? So missing you all take it well, right? You're not if you want to ask Master Nguyen to help you to curse the sword? Can use the other half to make cursed sword money." Ning Yao helplessly said, "Chun Ping, are you really stupid or a lack of heart?" Chun Ping thought for a moment, smiled, and said, "Miss Ning, you consider me a good person." Ning Yao suddenly stretched out his hand and pointed at the young man. His face suddenly enlightened expression, squinted his eyes, and smiled. "Chun Ping, honestly and fairly, are you plotting to cause trouble, secretly thinking that in the future you will turn Miss Ning into your own wife? Then aren't all the things your own? This little abacus is hitting boom boom. Amazing ah." The young man cried without tears. The corner of his mouth trembled. Song GXN had previously said something. Want to accuse then, why not be afraid of no reason? Ning Yao laughed, "Ha ha. See how to scare you, I'm joking." Chun Ping sighed, feeling that he had a little tired. Ning Yao suddenly sternly said, "Be careful. I've already returned the flying sword on the way." Chun Ping was like facing a great enemy. Chapter 57, Raising Sword Lake. Approaching the small town, Zheng Wushan's soldier family cultivator let go of Ma Kushuan's shoulder. Ma Kushuan was a little dizzy, shook his head, and asked, "Know who is the problem? Could be my father or granduncle. The treasure in the house is given to the outside people to take care of. One does not want to give, one forcefully wants. The result is just like Lu Xianying, encountering great trouble." The sword-wearing man carried Ma Kushuan and walked quickly ahead, shaking his head and saying, "The reason why Zheng Yangshan Panshan Yuan brazenly attacked, not hesitating to break the rules. That set of sword scripture itself treasured was a part of the reason. But the most important reason was still Zheng Yangshan and Feng Leiyuan's old grudge. If not for Feng Leiyuan Chen Songfeng coming to the small town before and after, that Panshan Yuan absolutely would not have attacked. Therefore, speaking of this small town, even if cultivators attacked, they would not dare to be too brazen and reckless. The one guarding this place, Mr. Qi, after all." The man suddenly stopped speaking, looking towards the street in the distance on the roof of a house, squatting a whole body pitch black as ink wild cat. It saw Ma Kushuan after, immediately screamed. Waiting until Ma Kuxuan discovered it, the wildcat immediately started to run quickly, running towards the other side of Xinghua Alley. Ma Kuxian in a moment complexion pale, crazy like follow on the roof stray cat, together run like crazy. The man thought through in that joint, sighed, not fast, not slow, follow behind the youth before and after did not have been pulled out distance by Ma Kuxian. Ma Kuxian all the way run back that extremely familiar alley when he saw the courtyard gate open wide the time, can say bold and daring youth actually at the doorstop, also do not dare to cross the threshold again. The youth knows his family courtyard gate all year round, almost never has such long open time, because grandma often reminded a truth, Hanhoa Alley belongs to the most hopeless poor, deliberately poor people, short-tempered horse, thin hair, long hair. Our family is easy to make people jealous, so family door must remember to keep the official tight, otherwise will be the thief remember. Ma Kuxian's red eyes walked into the courtyard. The main house's main gate also had no gatekeeper. Ma Kuxian saw a familiar thin figure fall on the ground. That black cat had squatted on the threshold, each loud cry, terrifying. "Don't go over." The man wearing a sword stretched out his hand to press the young man's shoulder, instructing, "Things have come to this point. Calm your mind." Ma Kuxian tried to hold back his tears, continuously took a deep breath, slowed down his steps, and softly called, "Grandma." The soldier sword cultivator took the lead and a step to the old woman beside him, but only stopped at the old woman's nose tip to search, and had lost his breath. That black cat head was so scared that it ran quickly into the inner room, flashing and disappearing. The man with the sword pondered, raised his head and faced Ma Kuxuan standing outside the door, and said in a low voice, "Stop. You are naturally born with very heavy yang energy. If you take a step closer, your grandmother, even if she has some remaining soul remaining in the room, will be harmed and annihilated by you." The youth straightened his dark face and wrinkled it hard, but he tried to suppress himself from crying out. The man made up his mind, grabbed the tiger talisman on his waist, and said in a low voice, "Mr. Qi, this matter cannot be taken lightly. You have your rules, I also have my bitterness. I hope Mr. Qi will not interfere in this matter in the future." After finishing these words, the man's aura naturally changed, his collar flapped, his hair fluttered, silently reciting a series of obscure and incomprehensible mantras, and finally took the 5 characters to close the seal. "Zhen Wushan invites you." Ma Kuxuan foolishly turned his head to look back, only saw a tall, golden-armored divine man descend from the sky. His fists on his chest collided. The sound was like thunder, said, "That Wu descendant. What do you have to order? This place has forbidden magic. I am not good at confining souls, so please help patrol this room around. If you discover this old woman's wandering soul, then take her in. Remember not to hurt her at all." That golden-armored divine man was silent for a moment, still nodded and said, "Follow orders." The golden light dissipated. No divine general was seen. The Yawu prison manager of the Longwei County, Chun Songfeng's descendant, was in a large open room, burying his head in a file. A vermilion wooden chest was placed beside the foot of the bed, and more than half of the chest contained yellowed ancient books. The female Chan Dui casually carried a book from the wooden chest and stood not far from the window, slowly flipping through the pages. The old steward of the Yushu was sitting in the room in a chair drinking tea. Feng Lei Yuan, sword cultivator Lu Ba Qiao, sat opposite the old man and chatted politely. The spirited old steward smiled and said, "Also lost the effort. Li Hong of the Li family building on the other side personally came to our Yeshu, opened his mouth to draft our small town's several branches of the Chun family records. Moreover, just the most recent 300 to 400 years of household registration records." The prince nodded and agreed. "I will let Li Hong be the one to take away the chest above that 70 or 80 hometown books. Below the remaining books, the age is even older, just right for your Chun Gongzi to want the old imperial calendar. Say back, if not every year Yushu requires in the summer and autumn weather, each book is dried once. It would have long been eaten by worms and worms." Standing at the window, Chun Dui also did not raise his head, indifferently asked, "I heard that the small town now has the surname Chun people. all give Falu Street, Taoya Alley for families, 10 clans as servants and maids. Some of the Chun people even all go up to be these high-class servants, generation after generation, to people kowtow and kneel down. Not to mention, seeing the small town's ordinary people will still be arrogant and haughty. The old steward was a little embarrassed. This female always said 4 families, 10 clans, or high class is the true legacy of 1,000 years of noble family. Longwei County Chen's eldest grandson, as a result, just sat on the other side with his servant, without a groan, buried her head and looking for documents. And this same surname, Chun female, unexpectedly can be as comfortable and at ease. Like her status has really been noble for a long time, old, and become a star steward using his. Needs to think all know. Although the old steward did not raise any maidservant surnamed Chun, he had always had a good relationship with those small-town, local snake family big shots. He did not think that in this matter, because he did not handle it well, he would provoke a dragon who came rushing across the river. So carefully consider after a while, the old man put down the teacup with a cracked bandage in his hand and slowly said, "Miss Chun, this is also a matter that cannot be solved. According to the words of an old senior from our Yushu, this small town has 2 distant ancestors of the Chun family. One of them moved out of the small town very early. There are no direct descendants left in the small town. I only vaguely heard that this branch of the Chun family, when they moved out of the small town, was specially left behind to guard the graves. It was too far away. The family lineage responsible for that branch of the Chun family was already impossible to verify. As for the other branch of the Chun family, a long time ago, they were also in the main family lineage, and the order was still very much in front. It's just a pity that the world is unpredictable. After several changes in the internal and external worlds, they gradually declined. Especially in the last few hundred years, just like Miss Chun, what you said is indeed a generation that is not as good as a generation. At this time, there was no independent Chun family people. No, I remembered it was really the only one left, should be now own small town, Chun family descendants. Only one did not rely on 4 families, 10 clans. That child, his father, porcelain craftsmanship exquisite, also received the praise of the 2 previous governors. So I now remember clearly, just he died early. Now his child passed how, I can already not know. However, speaking back, also just said I saw, heard, small town this side, to Chun family descendants overall are still considered not bad. Especially Song, Zhao, 2 big surnames. In the mansion, the great stewards are all surnamed Chun, nominally master and servant. In F, act like a family is not much different. After finishing this and that rotten rice and rotten sesame story in one breath, the old steward turned around, picked up the teacup, and took a sip of tea. Chen Dui smiled and nodded, saying, "Steward Shui is a wise person. No wonder the Yushu operates naturally." The old steward smiled brightly and said, "Miss Chun is too kind. People like us only know their own weight, so we can only work hard, work hard, work hard." Chun Dui laughed to let it go, moved his gaze away, looked at the sitting upright Chen Songfeng, coldly said, "Really not good," then turned the chest upside down from the bottom of those books to look. Steward Shui's words just now, didn't you hear? The small town for thousands of years, the records of books are only related to another branch of Chun clan. If I'm not mistaken, this small town's Chin clan and your Longwei County Chin clan, but counted as the same distant ancestor. How? Rolling over and over, each book of genealogy from beginning to end. Those names are not slaves or maids' fun. Chun Songfeng's forehead dripped with fine sweat, lips slightly white, but did not dare to refute a word. Hurriedly stood up from the chair, went to bend over to turn the chest to clean up the books. The old steward of the house immediately straightened his waist behind his back and did not have the slightest bit of leisure time, leisurely meaning. Lu Ba Qiao really can't stand it. Chen Songfeng's temperament is not fake, but good or bad as Longwei County Chun clan's future family head, regardless of you Chen Dui what background. Whether or not the same clan, at least should give a necessary respect. So Lu Ba Qiao said in a deep voice, "Chen Dui, I'm not blind, can see that Chen Songfeng is now giving you support, even if you don't appreciate it. Don't say such bad things." Chen Songfeng quickly raised his head to Lu Ba Qiao to signal. The latter opened his eyes wide and glared back. Even the emperor also has a few poor relatives. How? Is there an exception? Okay, even if someone is an exception, is it possible to look down on people? Frankly, this is Feng Lei Yuan Lu Ba Qiao's true nature. Chen Songfeng's face was full of bitterness. Old steward bowed his head to drink tea, pretending not to see, having ears but deaf. Chen Dui was stunned for a moment, smiled, and said, "It makes sense." This time it was Lu Baqiao's turn to be a little unwell. Chen Dui put down the book in his hand and placed it on the table. Planning to go out to breathe some air, Steward Shui naturally wanted to end the local host's etiquette, but was rejected by this Chun lady's gentle words. Chen Dui walked out of the Yushu Heavenly Auditorium, stood in the corridor, and looked back into the distance. The Yushu Great Hall outside had a large square. There was a temple opposite the main gate, written a large ancient script, High Mountain Music, Upper Court, Lower Prison. This was not uncommon. Each secular dynasty and state capital seal law in the county territory conferred 5 mountains as 5 mountains, southeast, west, northwest, center. The mountain gate would of course have the founding emperor's royal pen personally inscribed 2 characters. That list of books and music scripts. Also, of course, this ancient script was written. Later generations of literati poets and monks immortal masters. For this explanation, hundreds of thousands of kinds, and for the true reason, only afraid that long ago has been lost in the dust of history. Chen Dui saw a big 1, small 2 silhouettes, sitting on the temple white stone platform on the floor, whispering softly. She hesitated a little, slowly walked in. In order to fall off a eavesdropping suspicion, Chen Dui, at the time of going up the 2 people behind the stairs, then intentionally lightly coughed a sound. Never thought the 2 people, one spoke passionately, one listened seriously, as if to Chen Dui appeared innocently unconsciously. Chen Dui, this also did not mind. She comfortably and generously sat on the farthest step place, although she leisurely and casually sat, but the sitting posture invisibly emitted a subtle meaning, still gave people a kind of upright feeling. 1 big, 1 small. Using is the East Baoping Zhou Orthodox elegant official language words. Chen Dui heard to understand, otherwise she also would not go into this small town, but again said to continue relatively awkward, so with Chun Songfeng Lu Baqiao. All the way to come, then very silent few words. Of course she did not want to talk the main reason, still felt with Chun Songfeng Lu Baqiao, not to talk a block go, did not want to open mouth. Lu Baqiao's surface careless, but in the bone focused on swordsmanship, looked like interesting, actually bland. Chen Dui wholeheartedly revived family style. Looked like simple, actually thought a lot. 2 so-called East Baoping Zhou head handsome sure. All with her not a road person. Different path, hard to cooperate, just like that. The teenager glanced at the estimate compared to himself, big 10 years old female. The impression was really similar. Chen Dui quietly sat there, did not open mouth to talk sign. However, in front of the red light, discovered the little girl holding a light, transparent green gourd. Chen Dui's eyes were fierce and mean. At first sight, he knew it was not a vulgar thing. The rich young man's clothes and the porcelain doll seemed exquisite little girl. It was the alley of nipping Song Ji-Xian and Zhengyang Shan Taozi. Song Ji-Xian before and Song Chongjing went to Li's residence to comfort. At a glance looked at the little girl and liked it, because he since childhood liked exquisite and ornate things. Vulgar and simple things did not enter the law's eyes. Taozi also has a charming eye for Song Ji-Xian. The 2 people cannot understand each other and become good friends. The key is the age gap, and can still be together. Song Ji-Xian even does not feel that he has social etiquette, so he finally asks Uncle Song Chongjing to forcefully let Li family go. Bring Taozi to the prison to create Yushu here to play. Song Ji-Xian ignores Li family people like parents died tragically, holds the little girl's hand, and leaves Li residence main gate. At the same time, makes people bring words to the little residence's Mei Ji Kuei, makes her find in the chest the green gourd, gives it to Taozi as a meeting gift. Little girl and Song Ji-Sin are really intimate, coquettishly ask, cleaning up big brother, you just said 12 kinds of temple learning palace library ward. I came here before, heard grandpa and people chatting when said, you to leave that mountain cliff library. Now mixed really miserable, Do you know what is written on their mountain cliff library temple? Because Song Jisun name after 2 words. Tao Zi gave him a cleaning up big brother nickname. Song Jisun to this is okay. At this time no longer care that country girl go to stay. Bowed head to little girl smiled and said, "Don't know this life has not gone out of the small town. Read books also not much, with you chat for so long. Stomach almost empty already." Little girl sighed. "I don't know how the ape grandpa outside, looking for people to find?" Song Ji-xen smiled, bowed his head and patted the brocade hem of his robe. At that moment, his eyes were complicated. In the distance, Chun Dui suddenly asked gently, "Little girl, can this gourd of yours at some point make a sound yourself?" The little girl turned her head, her hands raised the gourd high, smiling and squinting her eyes, showing off. "It was given to me by elder brother Sansai. Asked one way, answered another." Chun Dui could only laugh it off. Song Ji-xen said casually, "Every time there's a storm, it will make a rumbling sound." Chun Dui nodded and said, "It is indeed a gourd of sword." Song Ji-xen was a little doubtful. Zhengyang Shan, little girl behind, said first, I know. Our house has 3 gourds of raising swords. My grandfather is one gray, ugly dead. Tai Bai Feng Lu, that grandfather, is only the most adorable, small, as big as a palm. Swish, 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 will fly out several dozen small flying swords. Su elder sister that is only not big, not small, purple gold color. Unfortunately, Su elder sister usually not too willing to take it out. I beg a lot of things to touch. Su elder sister very quickly hid it away. Chun Dui explained, "Little girl, you can't blame your Su elder sister. Purple gold gourd of raising swords. In gourds of raising swords, very rare, can be classified into 3 classes. Estimated the whole East Bao Bin Chao. Also just on her hand like that one. Moreover, purple gold gourd compared with other gourds of raising swords, although raising swords is extremely good, but the disadvantage is too brittle. Very easy to be broken by sharp weapons." Dao Zi once again hugged the green gourd. "Where is this?" Chun Dui smiled. "It is also very precious." The little girl tugged at Song Ji-xen's sleeve, timidly saying, "Sweeping big brother, do you want to take it back?" Song Ji-xen rubbed the little girl's head, full of indulgent eyes, haha laughed and said, "Don't say this is just a little gourd. Even if I still have it on hand, I am willing to give it to you together." Tran Doi, remember a pile of interesting things, said, "According to legend and history, the Heavenly Treasure House once held an auction. The last thing that stood out was a gourd that had never appeared before, with 6 small gourd fruits on top. It was said that Dao Zhu in the Immortal City before personally planted the saplings in our world. After who knows how many thousands of years, he finally formed that string of small gourds, different in size, different in color, very magical." Song Ji-xen sighed from the bottom of his heart. The world is boundless. There are all kinds of strange things. Chapter 58 Mr. The wilderness of the mountain forest borderland. A flying sword is honest and mysterious, stopping in the air, like a good family education, young family jade, seeing his family establish family law elders, can only face low brow, obediently bowing his head and standing. Flying sword beside the person stands a dusty, tired, middle-aged scholar, double tan frost white even more, if his Zhao Yao. Song Ji-xen 2 reading seeds here. We'll discover in a short week time. This school private gentleman has many silver hair. Flying sword point. The rest is silent, not speaking Zhejiang Mountain Pan Shan Yuan. The whole body, faintly exuding a word of disagreement, must decide life and death bold aura. Pan Shan Yuan finally cannot help but ask in a deep voice. Just now, why Zhenwu Shan people come? I cannot go? Mr. Qi, you are not also 2 eyes of fame and profit? This kind of face-to-face questioning can be said to be extremely impolite, but his Pan Shan Yuan still does not feel the slightest bit wrong. Although Zhenwu Shan is the eastern Bao Ping continent's military holy land, but has always been scattered, the sect consciousness is not strong. The father of great supernatural ability martial cultivator. More like in Zhenwu Shan hangs the name only. Zhenwu Shan rules is also famous but not to mention restraining force. Where does the force come from? Full face, tired Qi Jingchun before to the flying sword said, "Let's go, your master has no problem." This flying sword like a great pardon, the sword body happily jumps, turns back to the sword head, and goes in a flash. Pan Shan Yuan thought to guess the reason of the matter. Anger increased. That young girl is indeed you Mr. Chi Chu's middle junior. If his Mr. Chi has long been moved to Lu Shi Jian Jing Heart. Can big with me to explain? As long as does not fall in a Feng Lei Yuan hand. Was Mr. Chi disciple sign to take away, then take away. But Mr. Chi deliberately like this cover up. How? Already think when prostitute also want to establish chastity temple? The benefit from you Qi Jing Chun stole away. The evil name actually want me Zheng Yang Shan to come back. If said before criticism questioning is anger allowed. So said without choosing words, like now, this Pan Shan Yuan humiliates people to the extreme language. No doubt is tearing the skin face meaning. Qi Jingchuan's expression was as usual, and he slowly said, Qi Jingchun, as a Confucian student in charge of guarding this place's feng shui and fortune, there are some words that I should explain to you. First, I have no deep connection with that young lady. I just saw that her talent was extremely good. The 4 words on the plaque, Qi to the Dipper, contained a part of the Aquarius Pearl's swordsmanship destiny. When a young lady stood under the plaque, the 4 words actively had a connection with her. Unfortunately, the young lady's swordsmanship at that time was not enough to support the 4 words fortune. I just went with the flow and removed 2 of them and put them in her sword. My relationship with this young lady ends here. It's not what you've guessed. It's me who chose not to be a registered disciple. Qi Jingchun laughed at himself and said, if it is really possible to put aside one's face to guard the self-stealing, to be a master of a house, to hold things in one's bosom, how can outsiders perceive a bit? A set of dream-like murder sword scripture only requires me, Qi Jingchun, to scheme for nearly a year, only then to make a move to seize. Ban Shanyuan, as a Xinjiang mountain peak character, has seen too many thousand-mile-long plots and schemes, and has also experienced many pretentious high-ranking immortals and powerful methods, whereas willing to easily believe the previous Confucian scholar's excuse. But compared to the previous fierce words, it is much more even, just coldly laughing and saying, oh, that is me measuring the gentleman's heart with the heart of a villain. Qi Jingchun looked at Pan Shanyuan. The reason I came here to stop you, and for Zhen Wushan people go, the reason is actually very simple. Many people laugh and say that Zhen Wushan has 2 truths, true gentlemen and true villains. So whatever this military sword cultivator says to me, I can believe him. But you're different. You seriously injured Lu Xianyang, ruining this great path's future, and deliberately left this life to prevent yourself from being expelled by me too early. You kind of person. Speaking up to here, Qi Jingchun smiled. Oh, almost forgot. You are not human. Pan Shanyuan narrowed his eyes, his fists clenched, his joints shaking. If it is the mortal enemy Feng Lei Yuan, or is not used to sing Zhengyang Mountain Cultivator, to him this head protector Shan Yuan conducts sarcasm and ridicule, using not a person this way of speaking to take advantage of the mouth. Living 1,000 years, Pan Shan Yuan basically does not mind, but is in front of this middle-aged scholar, using a calm and gentle tone to speak. Pan Shan Yuan actually cannot understand, feeling greatly humiliated. Qi Jingchun to Pan Shan Yuan rage, innocently unconscious, continue to say, stop you, is for Zheng Yang Mountain good. Before the young girl almost had to sacrifice her life-giving thing. You come from Zhengyang Mountain, with sword Qi sword intent fighting 1,000 years of communication. Can't feel that pressure? Little girl at that time was just dying, struggling. That little bit of Tao method divine ability, Mr. Qi also shamelessly used to scare people. Old Yuan laughed ha-ha, pretending to suddenly realize, and said, before there were people saying that Qi Jingchun, your teacher, your moral character is hard to maintain as you age. Your idle position gradually decreased, and finally he was moved out of the temple of literature, not to mention, and was also mixed up with by others. At that time I still didn't believe it, thinking to myself that the Confucian temple of literature is the 4th saint. That is, if by any chance you really have the chance to see the legendary Dao Zu Buddha, you can barely say a few words to the scholar. But now it seems from your teacher to you Qi Jingchun, This Confucian literary lineage has only been passed down for 2 generations, and then it must be severed. The house of a gentleman is cut off in 5 generations. Who said it? Why is it that you deliberately have this literary lineage so useless? Could it be that you teacher is really like a certain library passed down like that, where something that continues the previous generation, opens the way for the next generation of Confucian sages, is basically 1,000 years without a great swindler? Qi Jingchun, although slightly frowned, but before and after quietly listened to Pan Shunyuan's language, from beginning to end, did not remember a word. Old Yuan laughed wildly. One foot stepped out, stretched out his finger, pointed towards that person who was beaten by someone to fall into the water of the book reader, laughed fiercely, and said, "Qi Jingchun, you Confucianists are not the most strictly adhere to etiquette. I just stand in this rule circle. You can make things difficult for me." Qi Jingchun turned his head to look at the other side of the small town, let out a soft sigh, once again looked at this side of Pan Shunyuan, asked, "Finished speaking?" Pan Shunyuan was stunned. From head to toe sized up a middle-aged scholar, withdrew his finger, bared his teeth, and said, "No respect. Mud Bodhisattva also has anger. Never thought that the book reader's temper is better. Scolding also does not argue back. Do not understand or not hit, not fight back." Qi Jingchun smiled and said, "You can try." Pan Shunyuan seemed to be moved, but in the end did not make a move. Pan Shunyuan asked, "Qi Jingchun, you must stop me from entering?" Qi Jingchun replied, "The consequences are serious. A Zhengyang mountain cannot bear it." Pan Shunyuan asked in a deep voice, "Really?" Qi Jingchun did not try to make a fuss, nor did he give way to Pan Shunyuan out of anger. Still patiently nodded and said, "Really?" Pan Shunyuan rubbed his chin, finally glanced at Qi Jingchun behind in the distance, coldly snorted and said, "Those 2 little guys have good luck. Tell them a word. Don't let me meet them again in the future." Pan Shunyuan turned around and quickly left, with his back facing Qi Jingchun. Lao Yuan suddenly raised an arm high and stuck up a thumbs up, just thumb slowly turned back direction, tied down. Qi Jingchun raised head, looked gray sky. Sky rain will fall. Ears suddenly sounded small town other side of voice. Is that Zhen Wushan soldier family cultivator request? Hope he can net open one side. Except he invite Zhen Wushan worship in their one god. Qi Jingchun nodded softly, said, "Can." When Qi Jingchun said this word after, at the same time, if someone just raised head, then can see to the top of the sky, suddenly appeared a bit of rice light, then an extremely slender golden thread from the sky descended, momentarily stopped in small town inside. "Mr. Qi." Qi Jingchun behind sounded a young man shout. Qi Jingchun turned around to look back. A pair of young men and women walked quickly running towards themselves. Looked at that named dark green country girl. He had a little sigh of emotion. Before reading the book Si Jiao Yao to the first saw faithful love, he immediately pointed out a sentence to describe the girl as unsheathed sword, the most loving other's mind. Young Zhao Yao, after all, did not know what love was, did not understand the profound meaning of these words, still deeply trapped in it. Qi Jingchun was not convenient to speak out the secret of heaven in one word. Hard to say that girl had a heart of inquiry, the most heartless. This heartless, absolutely not bad meaning, but also could not be more good meaning. Worldly love, love between men and women, after all, is only one of them. Under the foot of the mountain in the secular city, perhaps this love can move people's hearts, can let the infatuated man, resentful woman, not hesitate to give birth and die to promise, but in the mountain to cultivate, want to be much more complicated. Qi Jingchun looked at the straw shoes youth after. The smile must be very natural, gently teased, said, "Consecutive several rounds of price, be to the point of heaven and earth ghosts and gods terrified." Chun Ping'an was a little shy. Qi Jingchun went straight to the point, said, "Talk to you 2 things. One event is Zhengyang Mountain Pan Shunyuan retreated. Very soon must leave the small town." Chun Ping'an did not have any hesitation, neatly and decisively asked, "Old Yuan from small town, East Gate go?" Qi Jingchun raised his hand, gently pressed down 2 lower, smiled, said, "First listen to me, tell the end of the words. Lu Xianyang survived." The youth's body tensed, very carefully asked, Mr. Qi, Lu Xianying is not going to die? Qi Jingchun nodded and said, someone has come to help. Lu Xianying's life is safe. There is no doubt, but the bad news is that his body has been seriously injured. In the future, he may not be able to act as naturally as before. Chen Ping uncurled his lips and smiled. These days, the youth's mind, like a bowstring, was stretched to the full moon state. Not even a moment could be relaxed. After hearing Lu Xianyang's resurrection, he relaxed. His whole body immediately leaned back and rolled away, completely passed out. Ning Yao quickly hugged the youth. Qi Jingchun explained. Chen Ping was previously penetrated by Yun Hishan tied Jin Jian's finger, forcefully smashing his mind's gate. In fact, his spirit and energy had always been scattered everywhere. As a result, Lu Xianyang happened to have something happen at this moment. He had no choice but to desperately stimulate his potential. This is what is called disregarding everything. Originally, he could have half a year of life left. Now it is estimated that at most it is a week. This meaning Straw Shoes youth from the Ping Alley start, to small town roof, then to deep mountain small stream. Finally to this desolate mountain forest, each time run hastily, are in large amplitude continuously reduce life. Youth to this in heart knows clearly. Ning Yao asked, Mr. Qi, you just need to tell me, how to save Chen Ping'an? Qi Jingchun in heart sigh. This is really the mysterious place of Dao heart. Young girl are not to Chen Ping and no feelings, otherwise also will not fight shoulder to shoulder to this step. Normal people after hearing bad news, of course, will have a panic, sadness, sympathy process, fast, slow, long, short, deep, shallow, different only. But Ning Yao does not have it all. She immediately jumped to herself, want most result. How should I save people? Worldly cultivation. Cultivation strength can be seen, carefully step by step, just need to go upwards. The difference is only each step, each as big or small. Cultivate the heart is obscure, all directions, places or roads, as if all paths can prove the great path, but also like all paths are sideways and heretical paths. No one can give guidance. In cultivating the heart on a matter, people carry the heart of the person, called one step to the sky. Therefore the young girl can be comfortable and generous. Eyes clear and clear looking at the straw shoes young man, neatly and decisively asking him whether or not like herself. Qi Jingchun remembers that lotus crown young Taoist priest on the top of his head. The mood is even more solemn. Ning Yao squatted down, gently put Chen Ping on the body, asked, Mr. Qi, you actually said but before said, well, I feel Yang Jiafo, too old shopkeeper, save the dead and wounded ability is really okay. But actually Chen Ping knows an old man shop, very formidable. Qi Jingchun looked at the full face of a serious young girl, asked a strange question, what worldly thing? One go against the heavens and go against the current and rise. Ning Yao, without thinking, loudly said, one person, one sword, kill all the demon race. Qi Jingchun didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Somewhat helplessly said, is cultivation. Ning Yao carefully imagined, actually the same. Qi Jingchun pointed to the two people in front of the position and pointed to another place, sword furnace but nourish the body, 1,000 years but strengthen the spirit. But for Chen Ping and to say at most barely maintain a balance of income and expenditure. Good luck, maybe there is some profit. So wait until he wakes up, help me tell him, in the future practice boxing, even if not pursue other things just for life, must also put in hard work. Ning Yao gently exhaled. In fact, she was not better than Chen Ping and a runaway. Just bottom wanted to be too much better, just did not faint. Mr. Qi, then now I am taking Chen Ping into Nipping Alley to recuperate, or go to Lu Xianying over there to see the situation. Qi Jingchun smiled and said, now it is all possible. Ning Yao thought, behind this guy, definitely hope to open my eyes first, is to be able to see Lu Xianying, so I go to Gwinshur that sidewell. Qi Jingchun nodded and said, go with you guys for a while. The two walked side by side. The spring wind whipped at the face, the bookworm hands behind. The young girl carried the young man. Ning Yao walked forward, suddenly asked, Mr. Qi, as the owner of this small cave, have you or not, because of the water castle, accepted a few good talent disciples? Qi Jingshun smiled and shook his head. No, only accepted a non-disciple book boy. Previously was because of suspicion, now looking back to see. Indeed missed a few good seeds. Ning Yao asked again, Mr. Qi, you are here, do you know everything? Qi Jingshun smiled and said, as long as I want to know, I can know, but it is not certain that everything is the truth. After all, there are some things, one mistake can lead to 1,000 miles. There's a saying that Qi Jingshun did not say. Since leaving the small town, he lost this heart mirror reflecting the heavens and earth magical ability. Because someone took away that piece of town, it was the only remaining Confucian sub-sage token in the small town, and also the key clue to the Great Formation. Ning Yao hesitated a bit, still couldn't help but ask, Mr. Qi, what realm are you at now? Have you stepped into the upper 5 realms? Also, Mr. You sit in this direction of heaven and earth. Can you really be invincible in the world? Of course, Mr. If you feel there is no way, you cannot answer. I will just casually ask a bit. Qi Jingshun indeed did not answer. The young girl rolled her eyes, no longer speaking. Qi Jingshun intentionally and unintentionally slowed down her steps, turned her head to look back. The young man blinked. The middle-aged man also blinked. Qi Jingshun understood the meaning and smiled, not revealing his expression, but quietly quickened his steps. A virtuous gentleman helps others. After walking far away together, Qi Jingshun stopped his steps, smiling and said, I will not send you off. Standing in place, full of dew white middle-aged Confucian scholar, looking at the increasingly distant figure, silent. He walked out a step. Qi Jingshun blinked and went into that block of dragon-slaying platform near. Confucian saints all have a life-giving word, monopolizing the first place. Worldly no matter who you are, as long as you write, use, recite this word, then can for that Confucian saint increase a trace of virtue cultivation. Small accumulation becomes big. Water flows to wear away stone. Qi Jingshun is an exception. Not a word does not have, but has two. The meaning of letting go of the word is extremely long-lasting. The realm is extremely profound. Calm heart is pleased. Spring. The world welcomes spring. Therefore he can be exiled to this small world, completely separated from the outside great world. Although Qi Jingshun is only Confucianism 3 Learning Palace 72 Library Mountain Master 1. But Qi Jingshun really cannot be treated according to common sense. This facing Xinjiang Mountain Panshan Yuan repeatedly provocation humiliation, but does not have any reaction cowardly bookworm. Closed eyes, thought of Jing, character third brush, then stretched out closed double fingers, in the air gently descended a flower. That solid block cannot break the dragon-slaying platform. Instantly was half cut into 2 pieces. Qi Jingshun waved his sleeve, 2 neat big rocks. 1 block stopped in Nguyen Kung blacksmith shop. Another block appeared in the Ping Alley, a pile of small houses. Qi Jingshun finished all this, fell into deep thought, like a National Go player fell into the exam. Later stood in the middle of the fine rain curtain. Finally, it was pouring rain, thunder rumbled. Qi Jingshun still had not recovered his spirit. Always called Mr. Qi Jingshun by the people of the small town, thought of his own Mr. Chapter 59 Sleep. Ali Han Hoa Ma family ancestral home. Strolling the small town golden armor divine, person returned to the yard. Strangely, such a big true god, walking in all directions, but no one discovered. Young Ma Ku Xian squatted outside the door steps. Saw this golden armor divine person after. Full of expectant look, Zhen Wushan soldier family cultivator asked, How is it? The divine person was wearing a golden armor, with a dignified appearance. Only seeing this lip slightly moving. Ma Ku Xian did not hear any sound, and was extremely worried as he looked towards the sword cultivator in the room. The latter sighed and said, He said that your grandmother had committed too many sins during her lifetime, and before she died, her 3 souls and 7 spirits were already the same as her body, as if she was near death and far from heaven. Therefore, after your grandmother died, her life and soul simultaneously corrupted. This small town was different from other places, and was naturally resistant to ghosts and demons, so he still had not found your grandmother's remaining soul. Ma Kuxian's face was ferocious, and he raised his head and roared at that divine general. I don't care what method you use. Quickly go and find your grandmother's soul for me. Zhen Wushan's sword cultivator complexion drastically changed. Afraid that Ma Kuxian angered this venerable true god, was about to speak out to stop the youth. Jin Jia divine person did not know why, but used the orthodox Mandarin of Dong Baoping Zhou to open his mouth and say, if not, it is really impossible. After saying that sentence, covered in golden light within the mighty divine general looked towards the room inside Zhen Wushan's sword cultivator. The latter took a deep breath. His hands made a pair of incense sticks towards the divine general in the courtyard had already bowed 3 times. Each time bowed once. There was a hair-like quality, faint golden breath from Zhen Wushan, sword cultivator's gravestone floated out, then was gently inhaled into the nose by Jin Jia, divine person. 3 times passed. The divine person suddenly rose from the ground, transformed into a splendid pillar of light, and left this direction of heaven and earth. Zhen Wushan's sword cultivator complexion paled, moved the chair to sit down, gently exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. This is the street proverb. Invite the god, easily send the god difficult, true reason. Ma Kuxian face indifferent and retracted his gaze after, turned around and went into the room, sat on that old cold corpse beside, reached out to grab the old woman's dry hand, stared at her face that the youth for a long time did not say a word. Wearing sword man took off that side of the waist tiger talisman. The color compared to before had slightly appeared dim, slowly retracted into the sleeve. The man with the sword rested for a while, stood up and did not go to the young man's side, but sat on the threshold, turned his back to the young man, and slowly said, "Your grandmother should be at the door," was slapped by someone with great strength. The whole person was thrown into the room and died. The next few words you may not like to hear, but you should at least know the actual situation. The person who attacked was most likely a chi refiner, who attacked without knowing how heavy. Moreover, your grandmother's body was not strong, so she died. If it was a chi refiner who attacked, then more than half of it was related to the Muping Ali Chen Pingin and that foreign girl, or was the young woman who was intentionally ruined by you at Langxiao and attacked for revenge. The former possibility is very small. The latter possibility is extremely large. So, you went to the cemetery over there to kill Chan Ping, and it was out of respect for your grandmother, the filial piety, the cause and effect, but you absolutely do not think you just out of the door will just happen to have someone come to the door to cause trouble. Ma Kuxian tremblingly stretched out a hand, using the back of the hand to gently stick to her grandmother's face, high and swollen, already displaying a dark blue color. The young man softly said, "So is I who killed my grandmother, right?" The sword-wearing man said, "According to the secular eyes to see, is it so? If it is based on..." Ma Kuxian did not want to listen to this person again, stood up and laughed ferociously, said, "Massacre the people in the city to destroy the country cannot be done. Massacre the innocent cannot be done. These things cannot be done. Those things cannot be done. So revenge, killing people, in the end, can it be done or not?" Not waiting for the man to give an answer, Ma Kuxian continued to say, "If even this can't be done, then I join the army of monks with eggs to use? Why didn't I just become a great devil who does whatever he wants? Why didn't I agree to that Taoist priest and nun at that time, and go to such a sect?" The man hesitated for a moment, then said, "As long as you can accept all the consequences, that's fine. Just like today. Also, actually there are some words I previously may not have said thoroughly, such as this killing people. Actually, each person each has a line. How many people you can kill, how many people I can kill, is absolutely not the same. Not only because I'm stronger than you in strength, high realm, a person's mentality is also very important. The possibility that I kill 100 people, all are people who should be killed, but you only kill 2 or 3, there are people who should not be killed." Ma Kuxian suddenly sneered and said, "Kill or not people, how to kill people, why do I ask you? Do you still need your help? Almost forgot. I am not currently a formal true Martial Mountain disciple. The young man lowered his head to look at the old woman's face, then turned his head to the other side of the 8 immortals table and angrily shouted, "Go lead the way." A black cat head from the table of 8 immortals below flew out quickly. Ma Kuxian followed it together, ran towards the outside of the room. The man did not mind. Must know that the man's country in 150 years ago fell into turmoil. Mountains and rivers were torn apart. 100 years of chaos war. Extremely tragic level. There was only one in East Bao Bin Chao, the last 1,000 million households. Waiting until the new dynasty ended that great calamity, the remaining 800,000 households did not come. Therefore, in the end, many old people did not grow up, felt that in this world, everyone after death, all did not need to be buried. The man was one of these children. The man slowly stood up, compared to reminding Ma Kuxian that the murderer had been chased out of the small town. He even wanted to go to Nguyen Su's side to ask a question. Why is the Buddhist family in the eastern Baoping continent has declined for 1,000 years? Only a few small countries can respect this as the national teacher. In this small town above is also the weakest force, is the cycle of cause and effect is so obvious. This military family, sword cultivator, follows the youth far behind. Even if Ma Kuxian immediately is a disciple of Jinwu Mountain, men will not interfere too much with the youth's private grudges. On the battlefield above, live and die together. Cultivate on the path of life and death is self-confident. Of course, there is no absolute. Just like Ma Kuxian before almost died in Chun Pingin's hand, the man immediately took action to save Ma Kuxian. The reason has two. One is deep inside, he doesn't hope Ma Kuxian is such a genius, too young to die. Hope Ma Kuxian can be trained in Jinwu Mountain, no matter talent or temperament. Both improve a step. Hope the young man can become one of the military representative figures in the next great war, shine brightly. Another is Mr. Qi took the initiative to speak, said Ma Kuxian and Chun Pingin, two young men. To decide victory or defeat is fine. Don't decide life or death. At that time, he thought that Mr. Qi was worried that the young man from Nipping Alley would lose his life. After the matter was done, he discovered that it was not such a thing at all. The man far away followed the teenager behind, discovered Ma Kuxian after going through the initial enthusiasm above. The footsteps became slower and slower, more and more light and natural, finally like an ordinary teenager in walking around the street. Just when that black cat head from a roof jumped to the teenager's shoulder, then jumped to the ground, turned around after a while, ran like flying to leave, seemed to be telling the teenager had found a target. Hereafter, the teenager began to run slowly, once again changed temperament. The spring rain was very light, but was making the pedestrians on the road hurried footsteps, not far from under the eaves hiding rain shallow. A pair of beautiful clothes, precious young men and women are from the dragon riding alley goat towards the main road. Seems to have a chance, full of joy. Just a youth church them what is called fortune and misfortune are mutual. Youth from the two people behind 50 more steps distance outside start to run quickly. 20 steps time, loudly shout a mighty sound. Wait until that young man turns head to look back. Is Ma Kuxian, without holding back, force attack a punch. Into the head a punch. The young man, whole person flew out, really hard, thrown down on the street behind. The body slightly trembled, without the slightest sign of struggling to stand up. A punch later, 2 feet fell to the ground. Young man just happened to stand side by side with the young woman. Ma Kuxian body, one steadied. Left hand, lightning waved toward the female neck. Compared to his head, was still taller than half a head of female cultivator. A loud bang was already hit by this young man with one hand and knocked down on the ground. The female head rumbled, hit the muddy ground. Ma Kuxian stretched out a leg, stepped on the female forehead, stared at that dizzy face, bent down and lowered his head, using elegant language to say, "I know the culprit is not in the small town, but it doesn't matter, I can investigate myself." The appearance of extremely good young woman, eye sockets full of blood vessels, nose and ears all flowing out blood vessels, full of face frightened, looking above, looking down at the dark youth. The youth's face was fierce. Ma Kuxian has broken your cultivation heart state. You later revenge. Even if you randomly chop me to death, I accept that fate. Absolutely do not resent you. Even not afraid you revenge, not successful. I in good mood words will also let you go, willing to accompany you to play a few more times. According to my opinion, the world should be so clear and refreshing. The female is estimated to be her own sex heavenly pride. Where has she seen this kind of situation, scared to the point that the pear blossoms are covered in raindrops? Estimated that even the fierce and vicious youth said something that he couldn't remember clearly, only begging for mercy. Let me go. I beg you to let me go. Your grandmother wasn't killed by me. I don't know anything about feelings, eh? The youth gradually increased the strength of his feet, slowly pressing the female's other side into the mud. Do you know what I hate you guys the most? Is after creating evil deeds, still can be so careless. Not even a little guilty, not even a little. The youth's language carried sobbing. His eyes carried deep hatred. That girl struggled to reach out, hugged Ma Ku Xian's ankle, eyes filled with pity, pleading color. Let me go, my grandfather's the sea-tide iron cavalry commander. I am his most beloved granddaughter. I can compensate you. What do you want? I can all agree. The teenager smiled, but did not smile inwardly and said, Oh, so clever. And my grandmother's Ma Lanhua grandson. The teenager suddenly lifted his leg a little. Then the shoe sole on the delicate woman's cheek rubbed. Sea-tide iron cavalry, right? Wait, I will play with you slowly. The teenager retracted his leg, turned his head to look at the left and right two directions. On the left hand, Zhen Wushan man stood in the distance, wearing a sword and standing. On the right hand, there was a gentleman holding a paper umbrella, standing at the fallen to the ground, unable to get up. Pitiful person beside him, looking towards Ma Ku Xian. Ma Ku Xian's intuition told himself that umbrella-opening guy was actually waiting for himself to kill the woman's feet. Ma Ku Xian suddenly squatted down. That woman tried to escape, was pressed down by the wet youth's neck. After the woman didn't dare to move, the youth let go of his hand, used his palm to pat the woman's face, and said with a smile, Remember, for a long time, my name is Ma Ku Xian. In the future, I will definitely go find you. There's also the guy who is not in the small town. You must thank him properly, otherwise our relationship will not be so good. Ma Ku Xian finally spat out a mouthful of saliva on the woman's face. The youth stood up and walked towards the Zhen Wushan man and asked in a low voice, Who is that person? The sword cultivator indifferently said, He is the one of the 72 Confucian libraries, the future master of the Guanhu Library, named Shui Ming Wang, with a distinguished background. This time he also came to retrieve the overwhelming object. His heart is very deep. In the future, he must be careful. Otherwise, there will be an accident. You will be followed by him. Ma Kuchuan frowned and said, This person, with the feeling that Mr. Qi gives people, is really different. The sword cultivator couldn't help but laugh and said, Do you think that those scholars can be like Mr. Qi, strictly following their own heart? He hesitated a bit, still explained, Outside world all say that after Mr. Qi and his teacher declined, realm fell, mind state was broken, so he agreed to be exiled to this small world, although he always accept the pressure of heavenly Tao corrosion, but can do whatever he wants. I think I'm not sure. Ma Ku Xian towards these have no interest. Turn head to look back, see that umbrella-wielding man, squatting woman beside. Should be in good words, comforting comfort. Ma Ku Xian retracted his gaze. Together with sword-wielding man walk side by side. Young man heavy footsteps. Return to Xinghua Alley. The man opened his mouth to say, Your body is not lightly injured. Absolutely do not leave behind hidden illness. Otherwise, it will hinder future cultivation. Ma Ku Xian stretched out his hand to destroy the rainwater on his face, suddenly asking, Our small town, to those outsiders who come, what do you say? The sword cultivator replied, Just like the small town outside that small stream, fish and dragons are mixed. There are only knee-deep watercoals. There are also deep bottomless pools. Ma Ku Xian asked, Before, people from other places came here to practice treasure hunting. Drowned more than people? The sword cultivator smiled, shook his head and said, Before, almost no. Many were harmonious and prosperous. All were happy. This time is an exception. Yang Jiafo Zi. There was a heroic young woman carrying a young man and quickly passing through the threshold. to a middle-aged shop assistant asked, "Is old Mr. Yang here?" That person saw the young woman's extraordinary temperament, did not dare to delay, nodded and said, "In the backyard, we just finished collecting medicinal herbs. Do you have something to do?" Young girl nodded and said in a deep voice, "We are familiar with Old Man Yang. Want to ask him for a set of medicine." The waiter hesitated for a moment, did not linger, led them to go into the backyard of the main house. An old man was using an old woman to smoke a cigarette lightly on the table. The house in the far corner stood a sloppy man. It was the small-town East gatekeeper, bright stick Zheng Dafeng. Maybe thick orange peel with sharp nails. Zheng Dafeng bumped into Old Man Yang. That was the heir did not dare to smoke appearance, but not usually cunning and ruffian, lacking in virtue. Old Man Yang waved the pipe. Zheng Dafeng ran quickly out of the house, brought the shop waiter together to leave. Old Man Yang looked at the young woman behind the familiar young man, Chun Ping'an. Chun Ping'an at this time, lips pale, whole body trembling, hands almost desperately wrapped around a young woman's neck. Old Man Yang stood up slowly, one hand behind, one hand holding the pipe, walked to the young girl in front, and faced the young man, hoarsely said, "I have told you how many times, the more miserable the fate, the more you have to accumulate life and fortune. When you briefly encounter a little downfall, you want to die and want to live, then how come you didn't follow your mother to go together? Isn't it less work? Your master Yao is right. He always reminded you, when you were alive, that the 3-year-old look at the 3rd-year-old look at the old. You're a person who won't live long. Even if he taught you good skills with great effort, it is also a waste, just like wanting to throw into the ground early." Ning Yao widened her eyes and opened her mouth. In her impression, Old Man Yang should be a kind-faced old man, smiling all day long. Whoever thought that it was such a sour old man? The old man sarcastically said, "Is it very painful?" Chun Ping'an nodded slightly, already speechless. At that time, the young girl behind the back woke up after roughly the drug effect receded. Actually, at that time, also started to take effect. Just Chun Ping and Fel can resist a little. Wait until Ning Yao carried him to Lang Chao vicinity. He knew his how cannot stretch anymore. Therefore, Ning Yao even disregarded a ta. Cut back the middle handle of this knife by the stream road. Immediately ran, quickly carried him to Yang Jiafo Zi. The old man laughed heartily, said, "Pain, then obediently endure." After that, the old man glanced at Ning Yao, angrily said, "Let him sit on the long chair." The old man immediately after said to himself, "Give a little lady door to carry," also not complaining. Ning Yao tried to suppress anger, very carefully let Chun Ping'an sit on the long chair. She just let go. The young man immediately wobbled and was about to fall. Ning Yao just wanted to reach out to lift. The young man, although mouth cannot speak, still eyes indicate not need her help. The old man took a mouthful of homemade tobacco, looked at the young man's body and temperament, clicked his tongue, and said, "Really a name worthy of a person who has fallen into trouble. Good. Not ashamed of conscience, but actually not ashamed of conscience." The old man, basically indifferent to the young man to the bone pain. "Lu Xianying is what good fate. You are what lowly fate. So many years in the heart also have no fate. He died once, almost enough for you to die 10 times, no?" Ning Yao really can't stand this old man's strange language. Deep voice said, "Old Mr. Yang, can or not first help Chun Ping and reduce pain?" The old man's body was crooked. He turned his head and looked at the young girl and asked lightly, "You are a man?" Ning Yao's angry eyes met. The old man did not pay any attention to the young girl. He turned his head and looked at the young man. The old man was worried that he would fall into deep thought. Finally, the old man curled his lips and sighed, using the old pipe to poke Chun Ping and shoulder, his arm and thigh touching each other. In the middle of the moment, the young man took a lying position, his elbow propped his head up, and lay on the long chair. The old man shouted softly, "Sleep!" Chun Ping and instantly closed his eyes and slept, and immediately his snoring sounded like thunder. Chapter 60 has ghosts. Thursday Temple Under. Tran Doi chatted about many strange people and interesting stories. Chin Duong's son little girl heard the delicious smell, clicked her tongue, and said, "Sister, you understand a lot." Tran Doi smiled and said, "Wait for you to grow up. You will also know a lot of things. Song Tap Tan half-truth half-lie said, usually get along. Feel you're also very normal person. The long-browed woman slightly raised her eyebrows and asked, you mean is to say in front of your die, leave vassal king Song, Truong Kin, must lower your eyes, bow, and bend your knees? Song Jisin laughed haha, stretched out his hand and pointed at Chun Dui. Young lady, you talk about the road. If our small-town school principal Chi heard, he would definitely frown. You know, you call this or that. Really unreasonable. At first glance, it sounds like a savage with reason. In fact, fundamentally can't bear to consider. My true meaning, of course you cannot flatter Song Changjing. It's not necessarily like that. But he Song Changjing is at least the biggest Dali snake. Still the number 1 martial arts grandmaster, right? You are an outsider. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. To the master of a bunch of houses, be a little polite. Shouldn't you? Why must you insist on putting on a stinking face, big shot? You say put on, just put on. After putting on was beaten to death by Song Changjing. Still dare to speak vicious words in front of him. I really don't know how to say you're good. Finally, Song Jisin pointed at himself, self-mockingly said, even me, this kind of foul-mouthed, bad-hearted person, also understand to consider the times. Look at the plate of food. Chun Dui hesitated a bit, said, consider it as the same kind scolding. I'm also a martial artist. Toward you Dong Baoping, Zhou martial man. Eat and speak the truth. Always not particularly important. Of course, in the end, prove me wrong, very wrong. Song Jisin, surprised, said, you actually enough, really. Chun Dui indifferently said, martial artists do not accept fist, can accept what? Song Jisin suddenly asked a sharp question. You these come to small town to seek treasure opportunity people of other lands. Like the reason, and we think not too similar, is because you guys are stubborn. Chun Dui shook his head and laughed. There's no need for me to explain anything. In the future, as long as you go out of the small town, you will quickly become like us. Wait for you one day to step onto the path of cultivation. You will naturally understand, otherwise I will say it out loud. You will not understand. Song Gxin sighed and said, to become like you, that is not interesting. The little girl said and laughed. Then go to our Zhenyang mountain to play, but it is interesting. Song Gxin touched her little head and said indifferently, okay. Chun Dui turned his head and looked back, somewhat instinctively nervous. Only saw the white robe and jade belted greatly vassal king standing at the other side of the temple, saying to Song Gxin, go back to the nipping alley to clean up a bit, prepare to leave this place. Song Gxin laughed and said, come on, this will be a long time away from home. Little girl reluctantly asked, leaving the hometown is carrying a mouthful of well water to leave the hometown? Song Jisin haha laughed, stood up and said, go. First bring you back to the Leaf family building. This is called properly. Song Jisin held the little girl and walked towards the main gate of the Yushu, turned around and asked, outside this door on Falu Street will not appear assassins, right? Song Changjing laughed and said, this must ask your neighbor friends. Song Jisin curled his lips, turned around and looked at the sky. Dark clouds gathered. There was a hint of rain. His mood immediately became extremely bad. After sending Jiang Mountain Taozi back, Song Jisin was surprised to discover Song Changjing unexpectedly standing under that corrugated iron tree. He quickly walked over, curiously asked, just like that, leave? Song Changjing nodded and said, I have received some news. There's some work outside. I need to handle it myself. So I directly rode a carriage to Nipping Alley, and after collecting my things, I will leave. Song Jisin looked back, and sure enough, 3 carriages were stopped outside the gate of the mansion. This must be the first time a young man has ever sat in a carriage. Song Jisin bent down and sat in the front of the carriage. Song Changjing followed closely behind, sitting cross-legged. Song Jisin looked around. It was deserted, and there was only his but below that woven grass cushion, completely lacking the luxurious and imposing air that he had imagined. And even more so, it would not give people another shocking and stunning appearance. This made Song Jisin a little disappointed. The young man was originally looking forward to seeing Ji Kuei step onto the carriage and be surprised. The sound of horse hooves on the blue stone street was dense. making a clear sound as 3 horse carriages, one behind the other, drove out of Fuklok Street. Song Chongjing lifted the curtain, looked outside the carriage window at the small town scene. From now on, the Great Li dynasty must completely lose this small cave heaven in nominal control. However, on the contrary, since the founding of the Great Li dynasty, it is indeed relying on this small cave heaven to bring huge profits, only then step by step from a small corner of the heavenly residence, transformed into the current northern Baoping continent's largest secular dynasty, incomparable. 1,000 miles of mountains and rivers, small cave heaven. In the future, I'm afraid I can only find the secret history of the Great Li Imperial Palace. Song Chongjing collected his thoughts and casually asked, "Not saying goodbye to that Qin Pinyin?" After going out of Falu Street, the road was uneven. Song Jisun's body began to follow the carriage, gently swaying, shaking his head and saying, "That guy can or not survive. It's hard to say, in case only waits for a corpse. How disgusting. He Chun Pinyin has no father or mother. Now even good friends also died straight away. Then, but still isn't it from me, this neighbor, to help him handle the aftermath?" Song Chongjing hummed. Song Jisun asked, "That Jingyang Mountain little girl mentioned a person called Ma Kushuan. Is Han Hoa Alley, with me about the same age, just like he offered a bag of support money to sell Chun Pinyin and that young girl's hiding place to Jingyang Mountain. Do you know or not this guy in the end is what background? Before I only heard that he was a fool, never thought to hide it so deeply." Song Chongjing thought for a moment. The assassin hiding in Song family before assassinated that great Sui prince in the dragon riding alley. Originally had been found a little trace left behind, in which mentioned this young man named Ma Kushuan. These past few years, that person's criminal background assassin secretly had many times contact with Ma Kushuan, possibly teacher and student relationship. Now Zhen Wuxian is blocking one leg, can only temporarily put it aside. After all, among the Great Li army, there are many true martial descendants. Moreover, the officials are not low. Song Jisun laughed and said, "Uncle, you also said can only time?" Song Chongjing did not mind and said, "Who makes this king still have a big tail that is hard to wag identity? The damn Great Li vassal king." The carriage neared the nipping alley time. Song Jisun intentionally unintentionally said, "Chun Pinyin, is it really just Chun Pinyin?" Song Chongjing couldn't help but laugh. In making you move to the Naping alley in front, the issue had already thoroughly investigated. Chun Ping and his family's ancestors 18 generations, very clear and coherent, without any problems, with the 4 words wealth and power not involved. How? That Chen DUI scared you. Rest assured, this king has roughly guessed her identity. That one branch of Chun clan and Chun Pingin's ancestors left in this small town of branch, without the slightest bit of depth. So rest assured, Chun Pinyin is also just Chun Pinyin. Barely let go of the relationship with relatives is that Chun Songfeng in Longwei County Chun clan, but think about it, several hundred years without contacting relatives, still considered relatives? Furthermore, this small town Chun clan of branch has been so poor that there's only one person left who is not a servant or maid. Poor in the crowded market, no one asks. Rich in the deep mountains have guests looking for. You at least read a few letters, then this principle also do not understand? Song Xin still did not give up. That ancestor 18 generations before 18 generations just did not appear more than one brilliant and talented great figure? Not even one. Song Chongji laughed and said, "Originally you're hoping that Chun Pingin's background is a little more special." Song Xin did not hide his thoughts, nodded and said, "If he is different from ordinary people, my heart will also be a little more comfortable." Song Chongjing was even more curious, teasingly said, "That guy in the end, how did he bully you, making you so obsessed?" It is according to my understanding of that young man, it is not like a... Song Jisun coldly laughed and interrupted the feudal king's words. Small local people, their vision may not be high, their eye sockets will be shallow, but they absolutely cannot feel dizzy. Good is good to the point of being pure and kind-hearted. Bad will be bad to the point of having ulcers on their heads and oozing pus. And some people will really be foolish without any medicine to save them. even stupid and foolish again. Song Changjing was even more confused and puzzled. That Chen Ping'an belongs to which category? Song Jisun sighed, frustratedly said, "He is neither of them. He is really a fool. That's why I feel particularly wronged." Ning Yao squatted in front of the chair, carefully dignified Chen Ping and sleeping face, heart filled with shock. This waiting divine ability, absolutely indescribable. Chen Ping'an's strange, sleeping posture makes the teenager from head to toe expression a return to original meaning. Ning Yao, although not clear, but for a divine ability magic good or bad, the young girl naturally has extremely sharp intuition. Ning Yao turned head, curiously asked, "You are Chen Ping, an cultivation guide person?" The old man casually walked and smoked tobacco, his legs crossed, looking outside the room at the dark curtain of rain, smiling and saying, "Cultivation? This is considered cultivation? How?" Now outside the world, there is another qualified person who has the qualifications to establish a religion and call himself a founder. It is harmful to the habits of the future generations, cultivating on the road scenery. 1 year is not as good as 1 year. Not to the extent of going, those few people are not vegetarians if one's self has become Tao Tai, can only hear to do things that do not return, continue to go down, absolutely do not allow outsiders to share a cup of soup. Ning Yao did not understand. "Old Senior Yang, what are you talking about?" The old man was stunned. "Your elders did not tell you those ancient debts of the past." Ning Yao shook his head. "My ancestor, that person of the same generation, left early. My parents did not like to talk about other several world stories, afraid that I would run away from home." Old man Yang turned his head to look back, carefully assessed the young girl, and finally said, "That said, on the city wall, how many characters are there now?" Ning Yao honestly replied, "My ancestor was of the same generation and produced many heroic figures, so in a short span of 100 years, he re-engraved 2 characters, and now there are a total of 18 characters." The old man sighed and said, "Already 18 characters. Dao Fa, Hao Ran, Shi Tian. 6 characters later, there are still these." Ning Yao said in a deep voice, "The 4 characters of Lei Qi's important place. The sword energy that is eternal is also 4 characters, Qi, Chandong." Old man Yang frowned and asked, "Little girl, the remaining characters were eaten by you?" Ning Yao angrily said, "Forgot." The old man did not break the pot to ask the emperor. Change the question. Still the old rule. Each kill a ascended realm demon race. Only then have the qualification to engrave the next word on the Great Wall. Ning Yao frowned and said, "Why do you so understand my hometown situation?" The old man laughed and said, "A long time ago there was an alien sword cultivator. There was recorded travel habits. All the way the customs and soil were all written down by him. Finally died in our small town near. I then took that very thick travel book back. When there was nothing, I flipped through it." Ning Yao doubted this way of speaking was truthful. The old man seemed to have long eyes behind his back. Believe it or not from you. Ning Yao observed Chen Ping'an's state, a bit like a Taoist sitting and forgetting or Buddhist meditation. Asked, "What's wrong with him?" Old man Yang slowly said, "Little dead. People sleep because of small death." Ning Yao was a bit helpless. This old man Yang Jiafo too, his speech was either harsh and unpleasant to hear, or strange and strange. The old man muttered, "Little girl, I ask you, when a person is in the heart meditating, the so-called heart sound, in the end, which person is the sound?" Ning Yao was stunned, fell into deep thought. Very quickly, then naturally closed his eyes and concentrated. After a while was about to sleep. In the end, she suddenly nodded and slept soundly. Old man Yang stood up, walked around the young girl, walked to the front of the young man, used the smoke stick to point at Ning Yao, and said to the young man, "Look at a person, a hint, say a few words of matter, is able to break the scene in one move. Look at you again, don't have the ability yet, already like to be stubborn. Who are you stubborn with? God has been dozing for how many years? Happy to react to you like this kind of guy." Old man Yang returned to his seat, looking at the outside of the room, gradually growing rain curtain, urgent raindrops hitting the ground in the yard, boom boom shaking. The old man's expression was a bit pitiful. So many years have passed. choose, find so many people, never thought that on the contrary, the most hopeless one, the most hard-hearted. A skinny child, carrying a large basket of wild vegetables, in his hand using dogtail grass to weave 7 or 8 small fish. Walking in the alley, the child opened the door of his own courtyard, just entered the courtyard. Next door, immediately there was a young master dressed in silk clothes, stepped on a chair, and skillfully climbed up the high wall of the courtyard, squatted there, completely disregarding the dirtiness of the noble clothes, laughing and saying, "Hey, surnamed Chun, actually going up the mountain and down the water to eat? Your ability to rely on the mountain to eat the mountain and rely on the river to eat the river is really not small. Can you bring me to play together in the future? I will reward you with coins." The skinny child smiled. No need to give money. The young master with a rich and noble air curled his lips and said, "No need to knock it down. I am still unhappy." The child took those little fish from the dog's tail grass one by one. The big one had such a long hand, the little one was only the length of the thumb. The child tiptoed and placed it on his house's window to dry in the sun. Dried it and could be eaten. No need to sprinkle salt. Also no need to cut open the stomach, peel off the internal organs. It is not that the child is afraid of trouble, because if it is done like this, there will be no less than a few ounces of meat left. Anyway, it will be crispy and fragrant. The wall courtyard that young master finished speaking after actually had some regret. In fact, he had always really envied the neighbor of the same age. Every time he came home empty-handed, wild rabbit eel, wild snakehead fish, seeing him really moved, not craving for food, just eyes craving for it. But being competitive, he also did not want to change his words. Moreover, seeing the Chun family next door move lightly, carefree appearance, he then had some sadness and unhappiness. You say you Chun Pingin, every day poor to have nothing to eat, sleeping in a room with 8 sides exposed to the wind, all year round, not even a string of candied gourd, also not eat. What are you still complaining about? The name on the wall is Song Xin Young Master, towards this completely unable to understand. One day, food and clothing without worries, but can only live in a Ping Alley little child. He returned home time, face bruised, full of mud. That just made him side-made girl. Asked him what happened. Song Xin life and death also did not say. Returned to his own house after, closed the door, lay on the bed. Today he quarreled with someone, even fought. There were some vicious words, until now still lingering in the ear, making this extremely strong self-esteem child heart like knife cut. Face sometimes sorrowful, sometimes fierce. Don't you have some dirty money? What are you proud of? You're not even as good as Chun Pingin, although others have dead parents, but at least know who their own parents are. Do you know who their own parents are? Song child, tossing and turning on the bed. How can not sleep? The next day, this child did not have the usual appearance, squatting on the wall with the neighbors chatting, but was exceptionally going from door to door, going to Chun Pingin in the room. He in Chun Ping and said a sentence after. Not long after, Chun Pingin immediately left the small town, violated his mother passed away when he fulfilled the oath, still young, then went to Long Yao to become an apprentice. There was a figure secretly standing at the main road store back door on the other side. Young old man glanced behind, did not say anything, just turned around, disgusted and eyesore. That figure saw the old man's action after, exceptionally injured. What made him even more injured was a woman who he should be addressing as his sister-in-law. One hand opened the umbrella, one hand fiercely pushed his head, strode toward the backyard of the main house on the other side, saw the old man after, immediately had to pull out a voice to call out. Old man Yang sighed, quickly stood up and walked out of the room, closed the door, stood on the steps, looked at that person put on the posture of questioning the woman. The old man even pulled out a cigarette and had no interest. The woman stopped her steps, one hand on her hip, scolded. "What are you doing? Are you on guard against robbery?" "Old man Yang, you're my family's manly master. How can you do these immoral things? Lier has done a good job as a shop assistant. What do you use to make him pack up and leave?" "Yang Jia Fo Zi, is you opened?" Lier is sleeping with his master's wife, or sleeping with his master's daughter." The man who was thrown back from the road, cowered, hid behind the door on the other side. wishing he could dig a hole to bury himself. What kind of temperament his master had, and what kind of virtue his wifely heir had, he was not very clear about it. So he felt that even if he did not die this time, he would lose his skin. Young old head face expressionless. Speak? Speak, then go home, call Springo. Heard the smallest town West Cat meow sound. All year-round month, continuously not over. Daytime call, night also call. Good these people give noisy to move house. The woman seems to be said to be hit the sore spot. Voice again, upward soaring. Old undead thing. You still not shameless to say go home. Your disciple has no job. All day, just no grain play. Before 2 days my house roof collapsed. Even sewing patch also cannot get money out, causing me to have to bring mountains of gold, mountain silver back to my mother's house go. Accept all bullying. If not Lier, let you chase out the store. Our family of 4 people will be miserable like this. Young old head. Quickly take out the coffin originally. Give my family to repair the house. Otherwise I today with you not let go. The old man cold gaze looked towards that hiding and avoiding man. Zheng Dafeng. Zheng Dafeng said with a funeral expression, Master, Lier followed your old orders, went to do that thing. For a while, definitely not back. The old man's face was gloomy. Zheng Dafeng immediately knelt down and kowtowed with all his heart. The woman threw away the paper umbrella, sat on the ground in the rain, and cried, Old immortal thing, likes to worship, even his own disciple and wife don't let go. The old man moved to a small bench under the eaves, slowly sat down, took out tobacco from his waist pocket, crushed it into a ball, and put it in the middle of the pipe, puffed up the tobacco, raised his head, and looked up at the sky, not even bothering to look at the woman. Zheng Dafeng looked at the woman in the yard, screaming and crying. Under such a big rain, the woman was well-nourished and plump, and her clothes were thin, so Yang Jiafo Zi came to watch the excitement with many things, a bunch of sneaky music, widening their eyes. The woman cried until her heart was broken, but suddenly stopped, as if someone was strangling her neck. She rubbed her eyes, quickly stood up, grabbed the paper umbrella, and ran. The woman ran while shouting, There's a ghost. The old man pulled the corner of his mouth and said, The incense on the stage is rat shit. The gods hate the ghosts.